He was a king, a conqueror, a god in his own mind. Alexander the Great, a name synonymous with genius, ambition, and empire. But behind the glittering legend lies a darker truth. A man consumed by paranoia, drunk on power, and capable of unspeakable cruelty. This is not the story of a hero. This is the story of a madman. History remembers his triumphs, but today we unearth the shadows. From the ashes of Thebes to the blood-soaked sands of Persepolis, from drunken rages to megalomaniacal delusions, let's journey into the mind of one of history's most brilliant and terrifying figures. Born in 356 BCE to the ruthless King Philip II of Macedon, Alexander was groomed for conquest. His tutor Aristotle taught him philosophy, but his father taught him war. By 16 he was commanding troops. By 20 he was king, but his rise was drenched in blood. When Philip was assassinated in 336 BCE, Alexander wasted no time eliminating rivals. His stepbrother, cousin, and even an infant nephew all were murdered to secure his throne. The ancient historian Diodorus Siculus claims Alexander's mother, Olympias, personally oversaw the execution of Philip's last wife and child. This was no noble king, this was a predator sharpening his claws. And then came Thebes. In 335 BCE, the city dared to rebel. Alexander made an example of them. His army slaughtered 6,000 citizens, sold 30,000 into slavery, and razed the city to the ground. The Greek historian Arrian writes that Alexander wanted to terrify the rest of Greece into obedience. It worked, but this was just the beginning. Conquest wasn't enough. Alexander craved worship. After defeating the Persians at Issus in 333 BCE, he began styling himself as the son of Zeus. He marched to the oracle of Siwa in Egypt, where priests allegedly confirmed his divine status. But was this charisma or psychosis? Plutarch describes Alexander's growing obsession with divinity. He demanded proskynesis, Persian-style bowing, from his Greek troops, who saw it as sacrilege. When his court historian Callisthenes refused, Alexander had him tortured and executed. The message was clear: question his godhood and die. Even his closest friends weren't safe. In 328 BCE, at a drunken banquet in Maracanda, his general Clytus mocked his divine pretensions. Enraged, Alexander grabbed a spear and impaled him. Plutarch recounts Alexander's immediate remorse, sobbing over the body. But the damage was done. This wasn't a king. This was a tyrant unraveling. In 330 BCE, Alexander reached Persepolis, the glittering capital of the Persian Empire. What happened next remains one of history's most debated atrocities. After a month of looting, Alexander burned the city to ashes. Was this strategy or sheer madness? The Roman historian Quintus Curtius Rufus claims it began with a drunken party. Thais, an Athenian courtesan, dared Alexander to retaliate for Persia's burning of Athens 150 years earlier. He obliged, tossing the first torch. For days the city burned. Libraries, temples, palaces, centuries of knowledge, gone. Even his own men were horrified. The Greek general Ptolemy later called it a disgrace masquerading as vengeance. But this wasn't just revenge. Psychologists today might diagnose Alexander with hubris syndrome, a godlike arrogance fueled by unchecked power. Persepolis wasn't a message to enemies. It was a scream into the void, proof that no glory could satisfy his hunger. By 325 BCE, Alexander's empire stretched from Greece to India, but his ambition had no borders. On his return from India, he chose to march through the Gedrosian desert, a hellscape of 120-degree heat and barren rock. His advisors begged him to take the safer coastal route. He refused. Why? Some historians argue it was to outdo his idols, mythical heroes like Cyrus the Great. Others see it as punishment for his army's reluctance to push further into India. Whatever the reason, the result was catastrophic. Of the 50,000 who entered the desert, fewer than 15,000 survived. Ancient sources describe soldiers drinking seawater in desperation, dying of thirst beside empty water skins. Pack animals were slaughtered for their blood. Women and children following the army perished in the sand. Arrian writes that Alexander, ever the showman, carried a wounded soldier on his back to rally morale, but this was no heroism. This was narcissism. He'd led his men into hell just to prove he could. In the years following India, the Lion of Macedonia had become a distressed ruler in his own court. Whispers of conspiracy fanned the flames of his paranoia. In 330 BCE, after the murder of the satrap Bessus, he turned on his most loyal officers. Parmenion, his lifelong mentor and commander at Granicus and Issus, was executed on the unsubstantiated charge that his son Philotas had plotted against Alexander. Within days, Parmenion's entire household was slaughtered, an act that shattered morale among the ranks. Parliamentary trial gave way to grotesque spectacle when Philotas was forced under torture to confess. With hot irons searing his limbs, he admitted to a phantom conspiracy and was publicly beheaded. His death sent a clear message. No one, even those of royal blood, was safe. Back in Babylon in 324 BCE, at the fateful Feast of Opis, Alexander faced open mutiny from his Macedonian veterans. Feeling betrayed, he recalled every favor and promotion he had lavished on them and their comrades from Persia. Enraged, he punished them for cowardice, stripping many of their ranks. Earlier, in 327 BCE near Maracanda, Alexander's closest friend, Clytus the Black, challenged him for adopting Persian dress and customs. In a drunken rage, Alexander plunged his spear into Clytus, killing the man who once saved his life at Granicus. He spent the rest of the night lamenting and praying for death himself. In April 323 BCE, Alexander returned to Babylon, exhausted by decades of campaigning. He fell ill after a night of heavy drinking at the palace of Nebo. Fever claimed him soon after. Poison, disease, ancient sources differ. Some blame poison slipped into his wine, others point to typhoid or malaria, aggravated by excessive alcohol and wounds that never healed. Plutarch's account, he howled like a wounded wolf, raving about conspiracies and ordering the execution of his personal physicians when they could not cure him. Last words, according to Justin, to the strongest, when asked to whom he bequeathed his empire, words that unleashed the bloody wars of the Diadochi, after his coffin lay unburied for days. At just 32, the man who had conquered the world lay dead. His body, embalmed and placed in a gold sarcophagus, became the focus of pilgrimage, and the spark that ignited the struggle to fill his void. Thus ended the life of Alexander III of Macedon, a ruler undone not by the armies that trembled before him, but by the demons he carried within. Alexander's empire fractured within years of his death. His wife and son were murdered. His cities became ruins. Yet we still call him great. Why? Because history is written by the victors, but also by those who survive. Was he a visionary? Undoubtedly. A military genius? Unmatched. But genius does not absolve monstrosity. Alexander was a product of his time, but also a warning for ours. Power corrupts, ambition blinds, and the line between legend and lunacy is thinner than we think. If you dare to look deeper into history's shadows, like and subscribe. Share your thoughts below. Was Alexander a hero, a madman, or both?